Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. We bring you the latest on everything cool, and we have got a very cool episode of EP Live for you. Thank you for tuning in. Our guest today is Omari Newton. He's an actor and a playwright and so much more in the theatrical arts department in Vancouver. He works across a whole bunch of different media, and we're going to talk to him about that. But first, we have a rundown to get to, and today it's dedicated to Illmatic662, who says, I got chills hearing you shout out Tommy Tallarico on that Earthworm Jim review. Shout out to Judgment Day. Thank you so much. We got a lot of new subscribers, I think, because we were talking about this little baby right here, the Sega Genesis Mini. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but first, we got to get to your rundown, which goes out to Illmatic662. Now, Hollywood has already built a few Lego movies, and now another toy line is heading to theaters. A big-screen animated movie based on the Funko Pop toys is on the way. Funko has inked a deal with Warner Brothers, the same studio behind the Lego films, to begin developing the movie, and although no plot details have been revealed, don't be surprised if you see Funko versions of popular Warner Brothers franchises like DC and Harry Potter. Funko's CEO, Brian Mariotti, says the idea is to make a movie that stands on its own merit and isn't just about selling toys or building a brand. No word yet on a release window. Anybody that's been to Comic-Con or Fan Expo or any of these events out there knows how big Funko Pop is. They take over a huge section of any trade show, and people from all over the world just rush to try to get some of the exclusives out there. I mean, I can't believe it. This is a toy line that just persists and is massive, and I think they've done more to get some really esoteric cult favorite characters into toy form than any other brand ever in the history of toys. And in fact, just over the border in Washington, not far from where we shoot this in Vancouver, Funko's headquarters is something to travel to. I can't even remember the name of the city. Anybody remember what it's called? Has anybody been to the Funko Pop headquarters? No, it's hidden in this little cool town in Washington, and they've decked it out. It's like going to like a Disney kind of setup or something like that with huge Funko Pops. It's in Everett, Washington. Yeah, that's the Funko headquarters is worth going to Everett, Washington alone for. I found it one day when my family and I were traveling down to Seattle. We just pulled over to get some lunch, and there was the Funko headquarters, and it's an amazing story. They just started out of Everett, and they've just become this juggernaut, this entertainment juggernaut. We had Rod Ferguson in on Friday talking about the Gears Funko Pop video game, and it just blows me away. And, clearly the Lego movies surprised us all. They were a lot more than just a commercial for the toys. So, I think lightning can strike twice, provided the right creative ingredients are included in all of this. We shall see. But, yes, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a lot of Warner Brothers toys in there for sure. Now, you'll be able to play Nioh 2 a little earlier. Sony and Team Ninja have announced that their Monster Hunting Samurai game will be getting an open beta test. It will run from November 1st to 10th and will be available to anyone with an active PS Plus subscription. This will be the first time the game will be available to the general public and follows an invite-only closed alpha test earlier this year. In Nioh 2, players will take the role of a new protagonist who is half human, half demon, meaning you'll have a host of new demonic abilities at your disposal. The final game doesn't have a firm release date yet, but it's expected in early 2020, and Nioh became a massive success in the face of, lots of competitions with Dark Souls and all of the Dark Souls influence games out there, Bloodborne and everything else out there. So hats off to Team Ninja for making the first Nioh something that people with a lot more patience than me love. That game just kicked my ass, and I could not play that game. But it was beautiful, and I played the first few levels a couple times. And then I had to say, nope, you've abused me enough, game. I'm walking away. But clearly enough people were able to take their Bloodborne skills and their skills in gaming in general and get farther along into the first Nioh, so a sequel is on the way, and I suspect it will rock. It's official. Gears 5 is a smash success. Microsoft and the Coalition have announced that the new game has had the biggest first-party launch ever for the Xbox One. They haven't released specific numbers, but claim that the first week sales have doubled the previous game, Gears 4, and are the best for any Microsoft-published game since Halo 4 came out in 2012 on the Xbox 360. It's also doing well on the PC, where it has more than tripled the player base of Gears 4. The fact that Gears 5 is free for anyone with an Xbox Game Pass subscription probably helped, but this is still good news for Microsoft and all the developers at the Coalition, and I think we owe them a round of applause. Yes, Vancouver-based game. Congrats to everybody at the Coalition. It is a sensational game, and it deserves all the praise, and it deserves all the success. It's a ton of fun to play, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense that the Game Pass is helping a lot of people find this game, and I'm sure they're thinking this is the best deal in gaming, period. You get to play Gears 5 right out of the gate like that. Very, very cool stuff, and yeah, I think that because this is doing so well for everybody involved, we're going to start to see, especially with all these recent acquisitions that Microsoft has been doing with these awesome independent developers, which are now owned by Microsoft, we're going to start to see a lot of very cool games filter up through Game Pass. It's one of the best deals in gaming. It's very, very cool. So congrats to the Coalition. Another country might be banning loot boxes. After a months-long investigation, the UK Parliament's Digital Culture, Media and Sport Committee has found that loot boxes do count as a form of in-game gambling, at least if they can be bought with real-life money. The committee has now recommended that the Conservative government enact legislation to ban games with loot boxes from being marketed or sold to children, although it's unclear when or if this will actually happen. Something similar has already been done in Belgium, where publishers were forced to either remove loot boxes from games or stop selling them altogether. And it's interesting that we have the Xbox Game Pass story, and then the next story is all about loot boxes and, you know, the idea that some of this content could be construed as gambling. The video game industry needs to disassociate itself from this story as quickly as possible. They need to not look like they are merchandising or marketing video games that promote gambling in any fashion to young people. I mean, it's just bad for this business. It's made the industry a ton of money. We get it. And I've got a review coming up later in the show that kind of talks a little bit about microtransactions and this idea of pay to win just being such a slippery slope. It's, you know, it's employed a lot of people, all of this money that has been made. And it's also been a way for these companies to make huge piles of cash and then reinvest them into development. But it's not good for games. And, you know, clearly we are transitioning to a new way to get games, which is not going to make everybody happy. A lot of people are going to be really sad to walk away from digital or to see digital become less and less important with video games. But subscription should do something to tamper this idea that we also need to buy all of these little bits and pieces of games, and we need to buy loot boxes to get a little more data for these games. It's horrible, and it needs to stop. You know, it's just a bad story. It's tough for me to talk about it because I have all of these friends that work at these game companies that I'm, you know, I'm proud of their work, and I have known a lot of these people for a long time, and I recognize how big loot boxes and microtransactions have been for some of these publishers. They've made billions of dollars off of this stuff, but I mean, it's sitting right there. If the UK government is going to say, we've got to make drastic changes here, this is going to ripple all across the planet, and there's going to be some sweeping changes. And I think that the game industry should take the initiative and make these changes before the governments of the world tell them to. So, yeah, it's a big story. Let's hope it leads to some better news. But honestly, I think the solution is, as messy as it's going to be, is subscription-based gaming and the idea that you're going to pay a monthly fee and you're going to have access to all kinds of content. And when we're in that position, it's not going to be about it's going to be about keeping people connected to this software as long as possible, so that the hours can then be applied to how much money is being made from these things. Which means that they won't gate content. They won't say, you got to buy this to access this, or you got to take a chance with this loot box to access this, because both of those won't work in concert like this. Interesting days. This is a business. This video game industry is always in transition, and I know you have tons to talk about regarding this topic, so let's get into that with Let's Play and Chat a little bit later.